Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And today we are talking to a former Scotland international who is back into Clubland. What a story he's got to tell. He's one of the few people that we've had on here that I've never actually met until we signed up. But I got hooked up through the good man Jason Clark at Genius Brewing, who is the sponsor of this man at his club at Stewart's Melville in the city of Edinburgh. And there is lots to talk about, so let's not hang around. Former Scotland international and all-round good guy, the one and the only Mr. John Hardie. Hello, sir.
How you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I'm keen to hear this John Hardie story, so let's see where this goes. Firstly, let's start with where you are just now. You're coaching in Clubland at Stewart's Melville. How did that come around?
Yeah, it was lucky enough that Finn Calder and Nick McCashin got in contact with me after I finished and offered me the opportunity to look after the forwards for Stu Mel. And I jumped at the opportunity. It was pretty cool to have them contact me, and the rest is history. And I'm right in the midst of it, so I'm really loving it so far. Good bunch of boys, great club. So yeah, just loving being back in the club rugby scene, which I haven't been in for a long time.
Were you always going to be a coach when you fell out playing?
No, to be fair, I don't think I was going towards that route. But then all of a sudden, you get a bit of coaching and you start enjoying it, and you realise how much you have to learn and adapt. So I've really enjoyed that sort of part of it. It does come with the added stresses, but that's all part of it, isn't it? It's what keeps you ticking.
It's what keeps you ticking. Yeah, club rugby is not for everyone, but the people that love it do really love it. Getting approached by two men like Finn Calder, obviously a Scottish rugby legend, you must have been aware of him for a long time.
Yeah, I've heard about his. Would have been with the Lions and a Scotland legend as well. And Finn and Jim do a really big job for the club, for Stu Mel, and they're really passionate about it, and they're keen to grow the club, like we're trying to do at the moment. So to have those two guys on board for a club side like Stu Mel's, it's massive. And it's when you start coming down from the professional game that you realise how important those sort of people are. It gives you appreciation for it.
And is that something that's common in New Zealand? All Blacks and people that have been at the top of the game, do they tend to filter back into club rugby?
Yeah, I think that some people do go down that route, but I suppose they're all aligned to a club, but probably not the same sort of involvement in terms of what Finn and Jim have got at Stu Mel being life members. And I've stepped down from roles as well. But with a great president and chairman as well that want to keep growing the club and get back to where we want to be, I think it's so important to have those really special people there.
And how well do you know Nick McCashin? Because he's some boy and was a hell of a player in his day as well, and came across here, and he's been involved with the Stu Mel Club for a long time. Have you known him from back home?
It's actually a funny one. So I'd heard of him because we had played a couple of games against each other. He played for Bay of Plenty, and then he got in contact. He's a mates with actually Phil Burley. They played together at Bay of Plenty, so knew him through there. And yeah, and so it's a small world in New Zealand as well in terms of the rugby scene. So you always know someone that knows someone. So yeah, it was good to get Cash to contact me, and yeah, so he's the head of rugby at Stu Mel. So it's good to have him involved.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and he knows the ways of the world. Does that lad? Some boy is Cash, and getting involved in coaching, coming from the professional game. One of my frustrations is club rugby trying to replicate what happens in the professional game, and it's quite a different beast. Has there been anything that you've seen where you thought, whoa, this is a different world, or has there been some big similarities that you think you can bridge the gap really quickly?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think I've only been a very short time, and I don't know everything, but it's getting that balance right between having a professional mindset, and then also having that club side of rugby, having a beer, enjoying yourself. I think there's a fine balance, and if you go over either side of them too much, then things will start appearing with some cracks. Because boys they're working all day, and this is part of their fun, is coming down to training and playing a game on Saturday. It's completely different to a professional rugby player. They're getting paid to play, and they live and breathe it. So you got to have a different context in mind when you go into there and what you're trying to bring to the club. And I think if you can have those little things or little habit changes, then and if it's just those little things that you bring in, I think it'll go a long way to helping your club. But it's just a really fine balance, as you probably know.
The boys must love being able to tap you up, though, because the position you played, you must have known the laws, because it's a fine line for you guys where you're going for turnovers and when you're on that back foot and halfway up a ruck and all those things. Do you find the boys are asking you for more depth, more detail?
Yeah, I think the more they ask, there is a lot of players that are really keen to learn, and we really push boys to keep growing and keep getting better. And if I can help out in any little way, I try my best, and that's all you can that's all you can ask. And we're very lucky with our coaching group. We've got Dave Hampton, we've got Alex Haggard, who's the head coach, who's a young bloke who knows the game really well, and he's a really good coach. He's a really good communicator. So to have those guys on board helping me as well, because they've got a lot more experience than me, it's really good. And if we can be better as a coaching group, I think it's a massive part in getting better as a team as well for all the players.
Yeah, Dave Hampton is a great man, an
The
absolutely fantastic guy.
The king of culture, eh? What great energy.
We went to Orkney to play against Orkney when we were with Murrayfield Wanderers, and Dave and I went to church on the Sunday morning, and the minister there's a guy called Fraser McNaughton, who's from Edinburgh, from Curry Rugby Club, and it was a brilliant thing, great experience, one that Dave and I shared, and I'll never forget. That's an interesting one, talking about them having more experience, because people will see that John Hardie's coaching and think, whoa, he's got experience, but you've got experience of playing professionally. These guys have got probably a bit more experience of you than in the club game and in coaching. So you've all got something to learn from each other. How do you find time to get that? Because, busy people arrive, training's got to start, player needs this, balls need pumped up, where's the bibs, who needs cones? How much time are you able to find to share and learn from each other?
Yeah, no, it is really good. We do get, it's obviously a limited time, but there's obviously other forms of communication, WhatsApp groups and all that sort of stuff. So it does help. It's you can learn by watching and listening. It's so much different in terms of communicating. And though Dave and Hags have got teaching backgrounds, which I admire in terms of the way they communicate with the players. And I think if we can learn little things off each other and try and get better, it's that's all you can ask for. And I've learned massively over the past 6 or 7 months in terms of coaching. And when you look back and you think of all the coaches you've had, you've got a lot more respect for them. Even though I did have a lot of respect from them, and you've got a lot of respect now. You just don't know you used to just have to know your position and what's happening with other opposition, and now it's you sort of got to know a bit about everything. And I think the cool thing about coaching is you never do stop learning. There's so much changing in the game and adapting, and I think that's probably one thing I really enjoy.
One of the things I'm intrigued by, guys like you who go from that professional playing environment into what is an amateur coaching environment, how much better a player would you be now with the knowledge that you've built up?
It's actually funny. I think of this, and I'd probably approach things probably a wee bit differently in terms of like getting a better understanding of other positions. You work closely with some positions when you're playing, but if you had a better understanding of probably the whole game and you looked into it that way, I think you could pick up a few things from that. But at the same time, when you're playing, you're so driven, and you sort of got the blinkers on a wee bit. So it would be different, but we can't go back now. We can only just keep getting better.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's two kids. They're not kids. Connor Boyle at Edinburgh and Rory Darge at Glasgow, and Rory's picked up his first cap in this Six Nations. Both outstanding young men playing in the back row. I don't know if you're asked or if you provide a mentor role to anyone, but if you saw two kids like that, what sort of things would you be saying to them? Just be mindful of this.
Yeah, it's actually funny. We're back in 2016, I think 17. I met up with Connor Boyle. He was coming through Stumel College, and I went and had coffee with him and kept in contact with him for a while during his last couple of years at high school. Went down and watched a game, watched him play, and he was just a great young guy then, and you could see oodles of potential. And I've been watching a wee bit of Glasgow, and Rory Darge is an impressive young player as well. I think he's in the mould of a Hamish Watson a wee bit in terms of the way he plays. Good power post contact. Probably not the biggest guy, but packs a punch, if you know what I mean. But I think one of the thing I'll probably say to them or give advice. I don't know if they'd want it or if it's changed too much nowadays. But it's probably having a point of difference, and that's what coaches and the clubs look for, is having a point of difference. You don't want to be just okay at a lot of things. You want to have that point of difference that every player really wants, and which puts them up the ranks as well. And I think both those boys have got that point of difference. So it's exciting for those two guys, and if they keep progressing and keep working hard, I'm pretty sure they'll. One's just played for Scotland, got his debut, and I don't think Connor will be too far away either.
Yeah, he's a quality player. What was John Hardie's point of difference?
I think it was quite fun. Like, you got to adapt around your point of difference. I suppose when I was younger, it was probably caring more in terms of being a link player. And then I come to Scotland, and I probably found my point of difference was my defence and being able to be aggressive in contact with my tackling. And one thing I always tried to do was improve that and bring that sort of edge. But you're still trying to work on all your other things. But it's really important that people don't go away from their strengths as well. Just keep nailing them. So I suppose you got to adapt to how the game's going as well. Sometimes there was about a year ago when you could show a wee lift of the ball and you get a turnover. Now it's changed back to you've got to be on about 5 or 6 seconds to be to get that penalty. So you've got to adapt to the game, and your strengths might change all the time. So it's about evolving as well. Your point of difference, you might get a bit older and you might be a bit more cunning. So something else might be your point of difference. So you
cheat. That's what you mean. You cheat.
You got. Yeah, you do. You'll soon learn. You'll soon learn, and if you keep listening to the right people, then you're sure to go in the right way.
And in club rugby, that understanding that you're developing. I mean, how much attention did you pay in a scrummaging session on a Tuesday afternoon when you were a professional rugby player to, oh no, now I've got to tell the front row how to behave?
Yeah, I actually when I sit and have to make the boys do a scrum session or a line-out session, I wasn't probably the most dominant line-out forward either. I think I had about 2 jumps in my whole professional career. So it's telling boys different stuff. But luckily, we're lucky enough to have Jamie Hodson come down and take a line-outs on Tuesday. So that really helps, and I'm more towards the defense sort of part of it. But yeah, it is. You do. If it was one thing I'd say to the players now would be make sure you pay attention to all the game if you ever want to go into coaching, because you're soon trying to play catch up.
It always makes me chuckle when you see forwards do the line-out session and the open side's just stood at the back, sort of cleaning his boots and trying to figure out, pretending he's the scrum half and doing all those things. So you obviously began your rugby career in New Zealand and we have this vision. We sit here and we look at New Zealand probably through green eyes of envy, and we think that everything's really straightforward in New Zealand and players are 10 a penny. What was it like growing up in a culture where rugby's the main show in town?
Yeah, it was. I never got introduced to a football until I went to Scotland in 2015. You'd be frowned upon if you touched a football. So yeah, it was sort of bred into you in terms of, and that's what you watched when you were young. I still remember watching the 1995 World Cup and all that, and I'd be up in the middle of the night watching games, and I just it was bred into you, but you were so excited about the game of rugby, and that's what it's all about. So yeah, I suppose did you have another option? I suppose you did, but if there was one game everyone lived and breathed, it was rugby.
Who was your hero growing up?
Who was my hero? It wasn't actually a forward. It was Christian Cullen.
Oh yeah.
I remember my dad telling me he could bench press 100 kgs. So I I had that in my head my whole sort of young life, that Christian Cullen was the strongest player ever. So that's how I got that. But I just used to really enjoy watching him play. But there was heaps of guys he used to follow, and they were pretty special as well. So he was one that really sticks out in my mind. He sort of took rugby to a different level when he started playing.
And he was outrageous and was probably a lot of people's hero. That time growing up as a young Kiwi must have been an interesting one, because the game kind of hit showbiz as well.
Yeah, it did. I was sort of the professional era kicked in. Not sure when it was,
95,
95, 96.
Kicking the backside out the World Cup that you spoke about. So did
Yeah.
that then become I can do that as a job, or were you just playing rugby because you loved it?
I just played rugby because I loved it. It wasn't probably until I got to the first 15 in school that I realised this is not too bad. Like, there's a lot of people going professional that had been to the same school as me, and yeah, I sort of had this mindset that there's no way I'm not going to be a professional rugby player when I started in the first 15, and I suppose that probably helped me to be that driven to get there as well.
So was that important that you could see other people who'd gone before you? So one of the phrases that's around the women's game at the moment is we have to get young girls to see it so they can believe it. Did you take inspiration from seeing somebody who'd sat in the changing room you'd been in and been coached by the people you'd been coached, that made it possible?
Yeah, I seen guys go through an academy down home, and they made their first caps for the Southland Stags, and it's so important to have those sort of guys that it's possible. Anything's possible, and I think that was one of the main factors why I was so driven personally. But I know it happened. It's the same for a lot of other people as well. So it is really important to have those sort of role models or those people to follow in the footsteps of, and yeah, it's really underrated.
I was in New Zealand in '98, And although Super Rugby was the thing everyone was talking about, and we would watch it on a Saturday morning in this country, and then you'd be trying to replicate a Carlos Spencer Auckland Blues backline move, or you'd be trying to dream up these kind of things. But the level that I loved was that MPC level where there was club guys playing with All Blacks and guys who were scratching to get a franchise contract and guys that were talking about heading off overseas. The Southland Stags are one of those teams that people, maybe not their second team, but people love to see how Southland get on. How much motivation was there for that to be a stepping stone?
The Stags was massive for me in terms of my development and my love for the professional game. We had a really good run in 2009. We held the Ranfurly Shield for a good year and a half, and then in 2011 as well. But we had got great setup, a really good culture, and it made you absolutely love the game. And there was some real old school values about it as well. That sort of got lost in the professional game a wee bit there. But I used to love the ITM Cup. I thought it was awesome, and that was a stepping stone for Super Rugby. So you used to play your Super Rugby, and then you used to be able to come back for the other half of the year to play ITM Cup. And sometimes it was a breath of fresh air to get back to your home province and play with some guys that had been maybe playing at other Super Rugby teams. So it was really cool. It was really cool, and I got really fond memories of that. And yeah, let's just hope like that ITM Cup or Mitre 10 it's called now, it keeps growing and getting better, because I think there was a bit of a lull there for a bit. So I hope it starts picking up again soon.
Yeah, I love that level. There's so much in what you've just said there that I'm going to pick up on. That's why I'm scribbling away here. It's part of the Southland Stags that feels like home. There's a strong identity to the Mitre 10 Cup or ITA. To me, it was always the MPC. Yeah. Is it because that's the real strong identity and the franchise is another thing?
Yeah, there was a lot of homegrown players we had at Southland, but one thing that was really cool was we used to get a lot of players from different parts of regions as well. But the way they used to come in and embrace it and enjoy it, seeing them enjoy it, make that their home as well, was really cool. And I think it sort of had this, we come from all over the place. And I think it was a lot like the Highlanders as well, and really successful. There was a lot of different players from different regions. And the way everyone bought into it, and the homegrown players really welcomed those guys and they bought into the culture. Yeah, it was really cool. And that's why it's so important just to have a great culture within your squad, and it makes everything so much more enjoyable. No matter how far you go up the levels, it's always really important.
Yeah, my team were Waikato. I was in Hamilton, and Marty Holla and Dion Muir, Foster was at 10. Glenn Jackson was trying to push him out. Scott McLeod in the centre, Roger Randall in the wing. I got really excited by that, and the Mulu Bells, and it was just an amazing thing. You mentioned culture a lot there. This is a real rugby buzz thing about the culture we've got and the environment. These are phrases that are used a lot. What did that mean at Southland Stags?
It was, everyone says, like, how do you build culture? I don't think it's something you talk about and sit down and talk about. I think something that's bought in trust, and it's just something that happens really naturally. And it felt like everyone talks about, it might sound a bit cheesy, but everyone talks about playing for each other. It honestly felt like your life depended on it when you were playing. You didn't want to let down your mates, and it was just really strong, and it just grew naturally. And we had a really good captain and Jamie McIntosh, who led in terms of standards.
He was a man mountain.
Yeah. And he was really good. Then he started bringing in the standards, and the coaches were really good standards and like non-negotiables, and everyone stuck to them. And I think that goes a long way to building culture and accountability. Yeah, it's just something that it was built up over time as well. Don't get me wrong, there was some tough patches and there was some hard patches, but yeah, we got through it and we just keep getting better all the time. It was I look back on such fond memories and yeah, like I can take a lot of those things that I sort of learned or think about now and hopefully help other teams or help other people get that sort of buzz that I got.
And Southland's a tough place. You know, we complain about the weather up here. Gee, Southland could get quite as bad. Was there an element of we're some pretty tough cookies and you know, it's not palatial mansions and, you know, we've not got the biggest facility in the bit. Was there an element of it's us against the world?
Yeah, I think like we didn't have as much of a feeder club in terms of players, population, facilities, all that sort of stuff. So it was sort of against little brother against big brother sort of thing. Yeah, it was a lot of that. We had some great rivalries and we sort of wanted to be known as well, and we wanted players, other teams to respect us, and I think we got that over the years as well, taking a few big scalps along the way. So yeah, it was a lot of that sort of stuff as well. There was those sort of bits, but you can't let that get too far in the way. You've got to remember about yourselves from the start. You've got to look at yourselves first.
The Ranfurly Shield's a big love of mine. Waikato held it when I was there, and I learnt a lot about it and the history of it and how some of the smaller provinces get their shot, and there's been shocks, and you know they've held on to it for sometimes not very long. But what's it like? I mean, every kid will dream of being in the World Cup and winning the World Cup, or you know, playing for their country. How much did the Ranfurly Shield make to a kid like you playing for Southland?
Well, it was we won the Shield in 2009 in Canterbury, and I still remember coming home on I think it was the Saturday or the Sunday, and we went to Invercargill Airport. I didn't expect it, so I would have been 22, 23, I'm not too sure. But I remember going into this airport, and it was 2 stories, and I've never seen it like it before. It was absolutely packed. We had to like find our way in through a path, and they were just going mad. And it was crazy, and I didn't realize like how much support we had behind us. And to have that I was just blown away, absolutely blown away. It was awesome. And then 2011 we did the same thing, and they were all back again, and it sort of really kick-started some new fans as well that come out of the woodwork and started supporting. So it was really big, and we still talk about it. Our mates still talk about those days, and it was something no one can really take away from you. So it's awesome memories.
And it was the result of all those things you've spoken about, wanting to play for the shirt, standards being driven, the culture that you had. That was reward for those things, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. You don't think about that at the time, but it was those little things that made the bigger picture. So, yeah, it was when you look back at it, and you obviously just highlighted there, you think about it. It's those little things. It's those little 1%ers that you're doing all the time that make the big difference in the end. And yeah, it was those little things do make a big difference.
There's Kiwis all over the planet. You know, in almost every national team, there's somebody whose rugby began in New Zealand. Is there anybody you look back on through club rugby, school rugby, Southland, and you think, I wonder why they are not an All Black, or why someone that showed lots of promise and you felt was destined for greatness, and then for some reason it didn't quite happen for them?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that were excelled and made a lot of age group teams, under 16s, under 18s, and then I think the really talented guys that they just go out in the field and make it happen all the time. I think when you get to about 18 to 20, your only talent takes you so far, and you can see a lot of boys drop off in terms of they're not getting fit, they're not staying at the highest level of fitness they can. and they're not challenging themselves to get better, and they think it's just going to happen for them. And I think that there's a lot of guys in that bracket who are really talented at school, and then they get through to about 19, 20 into the academies, and that talent starts wearing off, and it takes more than talent from there. And then the other guys you see at the pub 10 years later that tell you that like if it wasn't for an injury or if I didn't start drinking and stuff like that, that's what happens. But no, I've definitely seen a lot of people, well, not a lot, a handful of people that probably thought their talent was going to take them right to the top, but didn't. You do have to start working hard when that runs out.
So now, being further down the line and with the experiences you've had, how does that shape some of the feedback or hints and tips that you would give to a young kid coming through?
Yeah, I'll just keep drumming that. Yeah, you just got to keep working hard to be better and grow and have the ability to learn as well. You don't know everything, and you think you do at times, and it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. If you get told, "Oh, you're not doing this properly," you take it as a dig at your character, but it's not. It's just you're trying to get better. And I probably took a while. I always took advice on board, but I always sometimes thought I knew best. But you soon realise and learn yourself. They're only just trying to help you as well. So yeah, that would be the thing, is just keep growing and take accountability of your training and everything you do, and just strive to be better every time you get on that rugby pitch. It doesn't just mean about the game, it's being better at training and doing the small detail and everything you can do. Your eating when you get home, your recovery, that's just so important. And as I talk about probably too much, the little 1%ers, 2%ers, that will make the difference in the long run.
You got some glory quite early in career, 22 years old, you win a Ranfurly Shield. Were there some of the old boys telling you it's not always like this, son, don't get used to this?
I don't think they probably tell me then, because I just thought it was all good. But no, they did. You knew how much it meant to some of the players. We had a guy called Jason Rutledge who he was getting on there. I think he played till he was about 40.
Did he not play about 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think he probably bet me I probably bet him to retirement. But yeah, to see what it meant to guys like that had been through the really tough times down at Southland, and then through to his old man who played with my old man at Southland back in 1940. I think it would have been about 1940, would it be that? That's when Dad was born. Far out. He won't like me saying that. I think it was back in the 70s. That was in the 70s, actually. Back in the 70s they played together. So it was quite cool that my dad and his dad were really good mates, and then we were playing for the same team as they were playing for. So it's a really cool sort of close-knit family affair. So you sort of knew what it meant, and you sort of knew it didn't happen all the time because we didn't run it for 50 years. So you sort of knew it didn't happen that often.
And so telling stories like that, hey, I'm playing with him and our dads played together, that all adds to the sense of belonging and how deep you dig for your team. Yeah,
100%. I think there's only so much that goes towards, but it is a big driving factor as well. It's massive. So
you're playing for Southland. This Super Rugby thing is there, and we were talking before we hit record. You're probably one of the most viewed rugby players on the planet because of that little section of play when you were with the Highlanders. I think it lasts about 3 minutes, and it is just end-to-end passes being made, people running great support lines, last-ditch tackles, turnovers. What was it like going from that ITM level? Was it a significant jump to play in Super Rugby?
Yeah, it was. It's different in terms of you're playing a lot of Australian teams who will try and play at more tempo, and then South African sides which will be a lot more physical, more set piece based. So it definitely was a level up in terms of speed and a lot of games physically, and you probably got punished more for your mistakes in Super Rugby. And going back to that clip, the 4-minute clip, I still have a bit of a joke with Phil Burley about it, because he was the one that passed me the ball and I spilt it and they scored down the other end. So I got the end of the clip. To be fair, I was happy that the play was over. But I told him it was a shocker of a pass. Anyone only could get one hand to it. And he goes, and he thinks otherwise. So I think it'll be an ongoing argument until we're about 80 or 90 when we're still telling our yarns in the pub about how you threw me that bad pass.
Yeah, it's an amazing clip, and it's one of those things that I think not necessarily that clip, but Super Rugby then shaped rugby all over the world because it became this entertainment thing, and you did go end to end, and you had superstars like Christian Cullen changing direction at that pace is just going to dislocate most people's knees. Carlos Spencer throwing things from behind his own line. And people started to go, whoa, this is more than just kick it up in the air and stick it up your jumper. Were you aware that you were part of that?
No, I think it was, you sort of knew you were a part of it, but you were just going along for the ride. That's what I felt probably. It sounds bad, but I was going along for the ride and I was just enjoying every moment, and just picking up as much as I could and just enjoy the journey. And I suppose I'm pretty happy I did that. Just didn't focus too much on what was actually happening with the game and how big it was getting. It was just being part of that awesome journey.
One of my favourite clips from Super Rugby is when Anton Oliver complains to the referee that you're not allowed to tackle Dan Carter when a penalty, I think it's maybe given against Nonu or someone, I can't remember who it is.
Was it Andrew Hoare?
Oh, sorry, Andrew Hoare. Andrew Hoare. And we're not allowed to hit Carter. And I love that. Was there's obviously tall puppies anywhere you go. Dan Carter probably being the tallest in New Zealand rugby. Did that provide motivation that we're going to knock him over, or did people admire what he was doing?
I think everyone, like, if you're a high-class All Black in New Zealand, you are pretty much royalty, I think. So, no, they were pretty highly sought after, and they're still really popular in New Zealand now. So, no, it is. There's a lot of harsh judgment as well in New Zealand rugby, just like anywhere. But if everyone can start trying to be a bit nice to each other, I think it'd be quite good.
Talk radio in New Zealand is pretty brutal, and some of the media. Did you pay attention to it? Did you listen to hear if they thought you were good or bad, or did it bother you at all, or were you, like you said, you were along for the ride? Were you aware of what was going on?
Yeah, I think you were aware of the media. When I was probably playing in New Zealand, social media was probably starting to kick on the last 3 or 4 years of my career. At the start, it was just your newspapers and the odd bit of internet. We didn't have smartphones then, I don't think. I feel really old now. But yeah, since I've been in the UK and probably to the end of Super Rugby, the social media sort of sides, it's massive in terms of growing the game. There are some real positives, but obviously there's some real negatives as well. You always say to young people, don't read the press and don't talk about that. They're only doing their job as well, but it's really hard not to when it's all over sort of your social media and everyone's on their phone nowadays. So it's it's a hard one. It's about, everyone has their opinion, don't they? And you just got to, it's harder. It's easier said than done just telling them not to worry about it. It's something that I think young players do get taught about now, or do get learn how to deal with that sort of stuff. So I think it's in the right place in terms of everyone is aware of it.
When you were playing in New Zealand, there's the competition in every position is just off the hook. You can get to third or fourth choice All Black, and it's still somebody that's pretty impressive. And we get in most other Test nations. Who did you really love coming up against?
It was, I had when I was towards the end of my New Zealand career, I played a lot against Sam Cane, played against him, Hardie Severe. Matt Todd was a guy that I had a massive battle with. He was really good guy. We went through school grade together. He was a fantastic player. And we had some great rivalries between us two, especially for Southern versus Canterbury and then Crusaders versus Highlanders. So, yeah, it's those sort of rivalries that get the best out of you. And if you didn't have those people there, you probably wouldn't be where you are today. And they've obviously gone on to do some really good things. So, I was lucky enough to play against those sort of blokes and share the field with them.
And who did you enjoy going for a beer with after?
Oh, there's too many, probably. There was too many. We had a great few guys down in Southland and in the Highlanders, but no, there's the cool thing about rugby. There's so many different characters, and there's so many people you can go over beer and you have a completely different conversation with someone. Then you go over to see another bloke and you have a completely different conversation. You all play rugby. There's so many different characters, and I think that's the awesome thing about it. And that still happens now. Even when I'm at Stu Mel, there's different players that have different jobs and different interests. So it's cool. It's cool.
So you're doing your thing, South Island in New Zealand, and then how does it work that you end up over here playing rugby, becoming a Scotland international? What's the link there? How did that happen? Does an agent call you up? Do you go looking?
So I had been in contact with Scotland from I was really, I think, about 24, 25. So a long time before, or 2 or 3 years before I actually come over. And I was actually looking to come to Edinburgh, but I couldn't get out of a clause in my contract in New Zealand. So I sort of seen it out and I didn't think it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden there was a sort of a gap after I finished Super Rugby in 2015. And it pretty much happened so quick. It was within a week, within a week of finishing Super Rugby, I had a call and I was in contact with Scotland and I was on the plane in 2 days. And I packed my bags and I was gone. It was crazy. Sort of been in, like, I had been thinking of the move, but I didn't think it was going to happen. Like, I thought it was finished, and I was too late in terms of getting over to Scotland. Just how things run, I always wanted to go over. I always did want to go over. That was my plan. That's what I wanted to do. But I thought it wasn't going to happen. I was going to be too late with Super Rugby and contracts and stuff like that. But yeah, it was so quick, and within 2 days, it's crazy when you think about it. I was over in Edinburgh, picked up, and then into the training squad, and it was awesome for my rugby. It was really awesome for my rugby. It's opened my eyes to such a bigger world, and I loved it.
How did the chat go with your old man? What did he say about you coming across?
Yeah, they were wrecked. They were wrecked for me. Obviously, their son leaving, but they were lucky enough to, when I did make the squad, they come over and to the World Cup and watched. So they absolutely loved that and had a great time. So it was scary. It was scary turning up to a team, such a proud team, and yeah. There's obviously some people that aren't happy that you've turned up and out of nowhere parachuted in. But I knew I just had to knuckle down and really prove myself that I wanted to be here and I wanted to be part of the team. And there was a few tough weeks in terms of you felt the pressure a wee bit in terms of trying to meet everyone. It wasn't just the training side. It was pretty much turning up and proving that you're actually not a dick, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Like, who's this guy thinking he's coming over, thinking he can make this team? And that's the last thing I want to think. And that was running through my head, like, beaters, they think I'm a dickhead. But it all worked out well. And you just got to be yourself, don't you? And that will soon come out. So, No, I loved it. I still remember I was doing jet lag protocols. So when you come off the plane, you were not meant to train or do anything for like the first 5 days because there's something like this. And I was just at training watching, and you feel so useless. You're at training watching, and the boys are out there training. And then Vern Cotter comes over to me and goes, "Mate, what are you doing? Why aren't you training? What are you doing?" And I was like, I was like, I don't know. What do I go, I'm not meant to. He's like, why are you not training? And then I remember jumping out on my trainers and started doing skills in the middle of training, and I was running around in gym shoes. But that was, and I think he probably liked it that I just jumped in and do it. But I think he was probably having me on when I think of it now.
So, some boy Vern, what an absolute star! I love
such a great guy.
Love Vern Cotter. How long did it take you to learn Flower of Scotland?
It took. I remember sitting back in my hotel room learning it every night before you're doing an anthem check. But no, it did take a while. It was more. It probably helped me. I remember reading the words, but I got more pay out of actually listening to it and watching it. And when I started watching it on YouTube, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome."
It took Tim Visser a long time. The boys gave him a really tough time. Were they kind to you? Were they nice to
you? They pick up every little thing, don't they? So I had a couple of stumbles, but I got there.
I love it. So you come across and you've got to build relationships. Who did you see and felt not necessarily an instant connection, but who did you think I could spend some time with this guy?
It was Jim Hamilton was actually the guy I first roomed with, and it was because the Edinburgh and Glasgow boys were living at their own accommodation in terms of their own houses. It was the Exile boys that I stayed at the hotels with, so it was Greg, Johnny, Richie Gray, Jim Hamilton, and they were really good in terms of welcoming me in and getting the ropes of what to do, when to go into training. I think John Barclay was there as well, so it was good. And then I just tried to get to know everyone, and they were really good. Like I can't say they made me feel unwelcome or what I felt like they were going to be like, but everyone was really welcoming, and I've still got some really great mates that I still talk to and keep close to now.
And coming to Edinburgh, you're playing different rugby. I mean, let's not make any bones about it. Rugby in the Northern Hemisphere is different. It's refereed differently. The length of the season is different. What were the biggest challenges that you met when you arrived?
The biggest challenge, it was it was one story that this is how much I didn't know. I was like to my mate, we walked out to training one day, and I was like, why are these balls different? Why are we playing? Because there's a difference between the two leagues. Is the Challenge Cup balls were different. They were Gilbert, and then it was Rhino balls when we were playing in I think it was a Pro 12, Pro 14 then. And I went out to train. I was like, why are we training with these balls? He's like, we got the Challenge Cup this week. I go, what's the difference between the Challenge Cup and the Pro 14? I know it sounds bad, but that was what it was like when I was first at Edinburgh. So, but I think I had to adapt to my game a lot, and had to find new ways of playing the game, and I really enjoyed that in terms of changing my game a lot. And yeah, it was just I've just got it was really good for my rugby. I felt like probably in New Zealand I was getting a bit stale. I was just doing what I had to, and it gives you a new lease of life. And yeah, I think it did, and it was probably one of the best moves I made in my career.
Who did you have to ask? What did he just say? What was it Greg when he got angry, or who were you who did you really have to tune into?
40 Ross Ford. I still remember him, and then Rory Sutherland was tough as well. He was he was in my Edinburgh team as when I first come. Great boys though, great boys.
Yeah, proper Hardie, obviously an Edinburgh and Scotland legend, and Suz just, I mean, becoming a Lion. What was your message to him when you heard he'd been selected for the Lions?
I was just ripped for him because he had a really tough time with injury, and he made his debut in 2016. I still remember against Japan, but you always knew he had oodles of potential, just explosive athlete as well. So, and to see the way he's come on is just it's great to see. He's just going from strength to strength now as well. So, and probably that Lions call up has just made him a better player as well. So, yeah, he's still got a lot more years left in him, and there'll be some good things to come.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. What was it like playing at Murrayfield?
It was awesome. It was awesome. What else? I've said awesome about 40 times this whole podcast, but there's no other words to describe it. I'd heard a lot about it. I was playing the World Cup, and I heard a lot about it. And I was lucky enough to play England at home, first game of Six Nations, and it was next level. Piper on the top of the roof. It was electric, absolutely electric.
And mates back home, what were their messages when you're pulling on a Scotland shirt?
Yeah, they were loving it. They were getting up and watching it in the middle of the night, and all my close mates sending me photos of myself on Clubland and the national anthem and all sorts. It was good buzz, and I think I converted a lot of supporters over home into Scottish fans anyway.
And coming up here, different opponents. Probably they didn't know you didn't know them. What did that do for your game?
It made me open my eyes a lot to rugby. I think New Zealand can be quite narrow-sided in terms of not recognising the rest of the world in rugby. And when I went over to the UK, it really opened my eyes and how many clubs, players. It was really cool learning about the different competitions and the rivalry and like your big clubs that have so much history behind them. There was so much to learn that I didn't know at the time. So it was a real eye opener, and it was something that I really enjoyed learning about. And yeah, it was good.
And there's a heap of coaches through your career, and you arrive in Scotland and you've got a Kiwi as your coach. Was there some security there with Vern?
Security? Yeah, he didn't. I'll tell you what, he didn't give me much, to be fair, at the start. So yeah, I remember turning up and I had a meeting with him when I first turned up, and he goes, "These are proud boys. Go and prove yourself." That's all I got. So I jumped on the paddock. So he was hard. He was fair. Good coach, good man manager. So yeah, it was sort of knew he was a New Zealander, but there wasn't any favour given anyway. It was all pretty even. I'll tell you that much.
So from all these experiences, school rugby, ITM Cup, Super Rugby, age group rugby, going overseas, you've had a lot of coaches at different times in your life. Who do you look back on and think, I'm so glad I got to spend some time with them?
Yeah, it was. I've been lucky enough to be coached by some really good coaches, and I was thinking about the other day were you trying to look into your own coaching as well in terms of what did all those coaches, what little things did you pick up from them that were really good traits that you really enjoyed? And I was actually thinking about all those coaches, and I was lucky enough to have an academy coach who made me so disciplined and made me make sure my training. He started talking to me about my eating and all that sort of stuff. Academy coach Peter Scalp, and he sort of started me off, and we still keep in contact now. And then I was lucky enough to be with Dave Henderson and Simon Culhane at the Stags, and then under Jamie Joseph, Tony Brown at the Highlanders, and then Tony Brown's next level, the new age sort of coach. Just he's always adapting. He's got some great ideas. He's coming over to Edinburgh with Alan Solomons, a real sort of old school but really good people person. Richard Cockrell, hard nosed, but learned a lot from him as well. And then Viren, obviously. There's just so many different coaches that I've had that you can take so much from, and you have so many fond memories about. Obviously, there's some tough times in terms of some tough trainings and that, but you wouldn't be the same player you are if you didn't have them, and you didn't hear those tough words that they told you to work on, or that you wouldn't have been the same player if it wasn't for them.
And Tony Brown is one of the coolest looking coaches where he's bonnet on and he's check shirt.
Yeah.
What are you a tracksuit coach? Are you a shirt and tie coach? Are you a bonnet wearing coach?
Oh, I think I'm just a nervous wreck, so I might not show it, but I am.
Are you a coach who still feels like a player? Do you? One of the things I do in the touchline when there's a line out, I go up on my tiptoes as if that's helping the jumper get a bit higher. I still kind of feel some of the movements, and I mean, I was never anywhere close to what you were. Are you finding it difficult to transition from one to the other?
No, I'm enjoying it. You see a whole different side of the game. Some things you thought were good when you were playing, you look for different things now, and I think getting out of that playing mindset, but obviously still having that instinct is good. I'm learning all the time. I've got heaps of things wrong, and as long as I just be myself, I think that's one of the most important things. And don't try to be someone you aren't. Then I think you'll do some better things, more better things than you'll do bad.
And what's the future for John Hardie?
At the moment, I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going to enjoy the journey. Nah, talked about the rugby journey. No, I would like to do carry on with Stu Mel, and we'll just see where it goes in terms of coaching. But I'm really enjoying it at the moment. Is that the street I'm going to end up? I don't know, but it's something I love the game of rugby and what it's given me, and it's opened so many opportunities. So it's something I definitely want to stay in and keep driving towards, because it's given me so much. So I'd like to somehow give back to the game as well in some little way.
Whenever I speak to rugby players, and selfishly, this is me too, the thing I miss most is not what happens between the whistles and the white lines. It's the changing room and those moments, especially before there were camera phones, the things that are just now stories. Nobody took a picture of them. There's no account of them, and they've been made greater or worse with history and with the retelling of them. What changing room do you look back on and think, I would give anything to be back in there?
I'll tell you the one change. Can I go back to 3?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll go the Southern Stags changing room 2009, the 2015 changing room for Super Rugby final when we won it. That was pretty cool. And I'd have to say I really enjoyed beating the changing room when we beat Samoa in the round robin game to go to the quarterfinal. I thought I think it was more of a relief sort of thing as well. Like we'd find like it was just a good feeling. It felt like everything was let out. So I've got so many great moments in changing rooms, but as every player does, probably some more than others. There's some bad ones as well. So you got to take the good with the bad, don't you? And you got to really enjoy those good ones. And I was lucky enough to have a lot of good memories, and that will stay with me for a lifetime.
Typical bloody Kiwi wins a Super Rugby final and describes it as pretty cool.
It was a good one. I'll tell you what, it was. We had a great time.
Yeah, I'll bet you did. So the position you played was ridiculous. I mean, and the things that you did and the places you put your body and your head were ridiculous. When you look at the game now, is there anything that you think, I can't believe we're still doing that, or is it just part of it?
I was actually talking about this to another bloke about, I was watching the France v Ireland game, and it was the one time I was like, I'm glad I'm not out there, because that was so physical, so fast. It was absolutely brutal. Great to watch, but I'll tell you what, I was glad I wasn't playing in it. I think probably the thing that leads to most injuries is probably the clean out. And I think they're helping that with the new rules in the sides. I think it's the knees and the legs getting caved in from the side, that sort of thing, and the head and neck contact. But I think they're trying to address those issues, and it does. When you sign up to rugby, you're signing up to a risk as well. So you got to remember that. But whatever we can do to make that game safer is top of the list as well.
Okay, John, I've loved speaking to you. I'm gonna finish with some quick fire. Best mate that you played with? You only get one. Don't give me any of this three nonsense. You only get one.
Probably Phil Burley, because I played along with him everywhere.
Who was your toughest opponent?
Hardie Severe.
Which Scotsman would have been a great All Black?
Which Scotsman would be a good All Black? Stuart Hall.
Which All Black would make a great Scotsman?
Ben Smith.
Oh yes, I love Ben from Accounts. I love Ben from Accounts.
He would fit in unreal.
Love Ben from Accounts. Right, we're going to finish there. We're going to finish on Ben from Accounts. John, I've absolutely loved speaking to you. Thank you so much for giving up your time, and all the very best at Stewmel. And hopefully, I'll either make it to a touchline or I'll be able to come and join you for a Genius after the game at some point.
Oh, that'd be great. We'll enjoy a Genius, and thanks to Jason for setting this up from Genius. It was awesome. Thanks very much.
Thank you, my man. Great to see you. All the very best.
Cheers, mate.
Absolutely loved that. What a top.
That was good, mate. It was good. I enjoyed that.
So many stories to tell, so much going in there. He's done so many things all over the world, and he's just down the road. So hopefully I'm going to go and see him at some point. If you've enjoyed it, you can catch us on Acast, Spotify and Apple. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube. Go back and have a look at the back catalogue. There's something there for everybody, I hope. And we've got some great guests coming up. But I hope you have enjoyed listening to John Hardie. And thank you to Genius Brewing for setting that one up. I am very, very grateful. It has been an amazing hour and a half in my time. My name is Bruce Aitchison. My happiness is egg-shaped, and I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon. All the best.